Hello and welcome to Fintech Frontiers Live. We are in for a great conversation here alongside SIBOS in the area of transition to transformation. We have a great guest today, a luminary who has been Chief Digital and Experience Officer in Corporate and Investment Banking at ABSA. He comes with a wealth of information from cash management to digital transformation to technology, and he's going to share with us some wonderful insights on how the banks are looking at transition to transformation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Richard Southey, who is the Chief Digital and Experience Officer of ABSA. Richard, welcome to Fintech Frontiers Live. So, Richard, every bank is at some level of transition or the other in digital transformation, and I'm sure your bank is as well getting into the next best level possible into the area of digital. How has been your journey, and what is the level of digital transformation that you look into?
Yeah, digital transformation is fundamentally about re-engineering the bank and the way it thinks about its business. It's not just a cool thing to do. It's genuinely about solving problems for clients, about bringing banking services in a far more convenient way to clients, and about making the organization a lot more productive. But that does sound like quite a simple kind of construct or thought about what it's really about. But it's fundamentally a cultural change. It's very much about the people moving into a slightly different way, becoming more data-driven by using technology tools to accelerate the way that we work, thinking about the customer journeys in a totally different way to what we have done previously, and re-engineering the bank. And when it's so fundamental, a digital transformation, if done well, pretty much it impacts all of the bank and all of our customers. So it's quite broad ranging. We don't think of it as a project. It's a transformation,
Ongoing
it's a
journey.
transition, and it's an ongoing journey. So it's not a single thing that
Wonderful.
we kind of do.
What are those key digital transformation areas that you are looking into in the near future?
Yeah, so we started our digital transformation really looking at the channel environment, looking at how we produce or bring our services to clients and how they interact with us, whether that's through API direct connections, through host banking, through online banking or mobile banking. That context of client and interaction is a common view. At the same time as doing that, we reorganized the way we do work. So starting to federate development as opposed to just having single monolithic types of ways of working. So really changing our environment from quite a waterfall type of environment to quite an agile type of environment, but working with cross-functional squads and reorganizing ourselves to be able to deliver a lot faster and a lot more insightfully into the market. But so ways of work has been a really, really big place. Obviously the channel journey and thinking through design, etc. But the changes which are probably more deep in the organization is really the data journey. Organizing data, starting to use data and helping the organization to make data-led decisions, higher quality decisions, faster decisions on an ongoing basis, really driving the learning culture of the organization, building out the data so that we can start to take advantage of the latest and greatest in AI, in generative AI, etc., to really take the organization to a new level.
Wonderful. Evolution of data ultimately depends upon the quality of data.
Correct.
And garbage in is garbage out for that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm sure constantly it is a regular activity for you to cleanse the data and take it to the next level.
It is. I mean, I suppose the concepts of data governance and data management are foundational in any digital journey, to be honest, although we may speak of that as a data journey. But being able to trust your data is the real thing. Absolutely. When you start looking at an organization as old and as complex as ours, there's a lot of legacy that is in there. And kind of modernizing that, bringing out the data so that you can trust it, organizing the firm so it's very clear around accountability, around ownership, who is actually going to get that data into a clean state so you can trust it. is very important. So the kind of the operational model around data, the how you organize it, how you govern it, basically sets the foundation so you can trust it. And then you can analyze data and you can start driving models and AI type of things. But if you don't get those foundational pieces right, as you said, it's garbage in and garbage out.
So one important thing you touched about is the legacy. Okay, and whenever you are getting into digital transformation journey, you face a lot of bottlenecks. Okay, one of course is the legacy to convert it into the next level of digital transformation. What else are the hurdles that generally banks face when they transform into digital transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much in this kind of journey, and a lot of it actually starts with how your organization has been set up from a systems perspective. And, big banks evolve over time, and different systems at different times are going to be brought in. But starting to think of it as a journey where you are trying to transform all of that at scale, you've got to start getting things like architectures right. So you're thinking around your data architecture as a start. Where do you place your big pieces? Payments, for instance. In legacy core banking, you would often have payments as a service inside of those. So hollowing out the core so that you can actually identify the service and start running it as more of a platform rather than in a product silo is quite an important part of it. And what our approach has been one of hollowing out the core, taking out services like payments, taking out services like pricing and billing, understanding those kind of concepts and pulling them away. And over time, that makes it simpler to start taking out your legacy systems altogether and going towards more modern technology, which is obviously easier to use, it's faster, it's more reliable, it's got more stability and robustness about it, is an important part of that journey. But it's got to be deliberate. You've got to kind of think through it on an ongoing basis, how you kind of pull that out. And I know different banks have had different approaches. Some have gone for rip and replace concepts. We found that too risky for us to go after it. So we've really gone after the hollowing out of the core, and over time we will, and we have been steadily decommissioning systems over the last kind of 7 or 8 years as we've become a more modern organization.
Interesting. And it is always a people, process and technology transformation. When it comes to people transformation, how are you actually ensuring that there is no experiential difference for your teams which are doing the transformation and also for the customer?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people part of a digital transformation is probably the most complex part. And, any cultural journey is slightly slower than something which you can technically go after. It's hugely about learning. And it's about educating along the way. And it's really, really important that you, talking maybe first to the internal environment, that you bring the people with you. So you would far more prefer to be in a position where people are part of the journey than a journey being done to them. So a number of things kind of spring to mind. The educational journey is quite important because as you step through a digital transformation, jobs actually change, and that's quite threatening in an internal environment.
Absolutely.
So preparing people for that journey, highlighting the positive of it, allowing people to start to develop skills which are becoming more useful in the more modern environment as you kind of decommission jobs, if I could put it that way.
Absolutely.
Thinking of people as systems, but you will over time start to take those things on, and we can see that as an accelerating trend. If you think of the impact of Gen AI, for instance, you will see that a lot of menial work can be done at a massively accelerated rate. That means that people need to be lifting themselves to actually more interesting things. But that journey is something that is difficult to transfer. So it's a continual I think change management as a concept is one of the key sort of skills that firms need to develop around how you communicate, how you train, how you take people along the journey. It's not a simple thing to leave the people behind. And the change resistance of an organization is actually quite threatening to the digital transformation itself.
Absolutely.
So you have to be very conscious of the people journey as you move along. If you shift towards more the customer environment, it's a little bit easier in the customer environment because you're meeting demands and needs more directly. Things are getting a lot easier for customers to work with you. Data is becoming available more real time. Processes are getting improved in their own environment. And the interesting thing about that is, as you start to develop out a digital transformation, one of the key things is to start building advisory skills to help your clients to transform as well. Because a digitally transformed bank working with a non-digitally transformed client is a little bit more complex. So advising them how they can make their businesses better is a skill that actually has to be developed and becomes a key sales skill inside of the bank. So it's an interesting kind of play-off. The internal environment, which is really about educating and driving new skills, and the client side, which is possibly more about advising.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the client side, you also talk a lot about experiential pricing.
Yeah.
Okay. Customized pricing and various such kind of models. How are these models evolving in the recent past, and what new technologies are enabling this kind of pricing models?
Yeah, I mean, pricing, I think, if you kind of look through the evolution of banking a little bit, and particularly corporate banking, initially what we would see is very much kind of product level pricing, very focused on at a product kind of scenario. Clients would often cherry pick in terms of this bank for that product, this bank for that product, this bank for that product. And basically you're in a bit of a price war about those products, and we're getting more and more commoditized. But as you start to move forward and you solve different problems for clients, you're starting to bring a lot of different products together. And the pricing game is actually more about what works best for the client and works best for the bank. So you're not necessarily going after very traditional models anymore. You really are looking at the life cycle of the client. It's not always about just profit maximization on a product level, but it's really about what works for the client and what works for the bank. It's overall customer return as opposed to product return. And therefore you've got to get a lot more sophisticated in how your pricing models actually work. It's no longer okay to just kind of think about the interest rate on this product or the fee rate on that product. You've got to take all of these things together, try and map out how you see the customer operating over time, and then kind of giving out a price which is highly competitive but is also good for the bank at the same time.
Are there any interesting solutions which automate that?
They are. I mean, I think, in partnership and, I think what we have found is that you do need very strong solutions. And what's quite interesting, and particularly in some of the pricing, is that very good vendor solutions have started to emerge out of the telco industry. Dealing with very high volume, very fast kind of environments. Those have developed skills which we've started to import into the bank to help us with some of the situations. We also deal with a high volume environment. We deal with a complex environment. And there are multiple different solutions where we have found a couple who have kind of raised above others.
Wonderful. And when you get into this kind of transformation journeys, is it the business that calls the shot, or is it more of the technology? Is it a correlated, or who does it first?
I mean, I think obviously the technology drive probably came initially out of the IT type of environment, but banking is very much a technology-driven business these days. So I think, the education in the business side is pretty high about what technology is possible. But the way we've started to organize it is actually looking more and more at cross-functional teams, where you've got product capability, you've got process capability, you've got IT capability or development capability, all sitting in teams who are learning and getting data feedback consistently about the products they put out to market, and working together with slightly different lenses on problems to start to drive an iterative process of moving further and further towards great client experiences and great client solutions. So I don't think it's actually one or the other. But what's important is that you make sure that your firm is moving where everybody is thinking about digital transformation, about data, in helping them to make better decisions as they move along, and really about building a learning organization. I've often said to our firm and to customers that the real differentiator these days is who can learn faster.
Correct.
It's not really about, and if you can execute fast behind that learning, you are on a winning model, because so much is changing around us on an ongoing basis that you can't predict the future. You can't have 5-year plans because they are going to change.
Correct.
We're getting disrupted all of the time. New things are happening. Digital assets are starting to change towards a decentralized finance world. Who would have thought about that 10 years ago?
Absolutely.
So how you play in those markets is actually about how fast you learn about the changes happening around you.
Wonderful. And when you do these kind of journeys, is it more strategically driven by the consultants who do it, or is it internally within the banks who drive this kind of strategic changes into the digital transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of got a basic statement. You can't outsource your digital transformation. So I think consultants are enormously useful in helping you to gather data and advise you about what's happening around you. They've got incredible research capability. They bring that to bear. They start to expose you to models. But the decision making has to sit within your own organization. And how you take that journey needs to be well informed. And consultants help incredibly well with informing. So we work with a number of consultants on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we value them very, very highly.
Wonderful.
But the ownership is ours.
Ultimately, you have to bell the cat.
Exactly.
Interesting. And when it comes to data evolution, okay, data, like you said, is going to be one of the fundamentals of deciding the business success today. So how is the data evolving now compared to the recent past, and especially with ChatGPT and cognitive AI and generative AI kind of stuff coming into picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, data's been a huge topic for decades. But it's almost got a new boost since ChatGPT kind of went live to the world. So, the thinking about data, I think, we were building narrow AI models, thinking things like fraud, and building models to start to understand, patterns of fraudulent behavior, and helping with the fraud management in the bank. So quite narrow use cases. But what Gen AI has started to bring to mind is the possibility of so many more things, because the management of language in generative AI is at a different level to what we've ever seen before. So the options to help people become internally, fundamentally more productive, to get to capability a lot quicker, to start to service with service agents, etc., which are driven by that type of thing, I think the possibilities are growing, and we all, I think, across banking industries are going to have to learn about it. I saw at SIBOS, 2 different presentations where both were in agreement that over 70% of banking jobs are going to be broadly very affected by generative AI. So you've got to start thinking that the work environment is changing hugely. through the the rise of Gen AI. I think that the concepts of being able to be sure about the security of your data are very important. What you don't want is your data suddenly forming part of public models.
Absolutely.
You've got to be very, very clear about how you protect your data within the bank. It is proprietary data. It is customer data. It cannot form part of those things. So building out the way we think about it, but we would be mad if we don't really take advantage of those tools. In fact, if you don't, I think you'll be left far behind.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Data governance, data security.
Yeah.
These are all some of the fundamentals that will remain irrespective of whatever evolution of data is.
That hasn't changed at all.
That doesn't change. So that is the basics and fundamentals of data. And I'm happy that we could come to learn a lot more about how banks are looking at transformation through you. Thank you so much, Richard, for such a great insight, throwing some of your great experiences with us at fintechfrontiers.live.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.